You are listening to Offensive Lines with Marlon and Boyd. Small stakes NFL gambling for the average fan.
Welcome to Offensive Lines. I'm Marlon.
I'm Boyd.
And here are our picks for the Wildcard round. We are down in the season. Not hugely. But we've been taking favorites all year, and this is something we discussed in the last podcast. I just want to bring up something. Once again, I went 4-1 in my pick 5 pool. This one had a tiebreaker, which I missed, because at 4-1 I would have been in for the tiebreaker. And still managed to choke that out.
You missed the you picked?
I was in the tiebreaker. I picked it. I was off by 10 because I thought it would be a high-scoring game. And I was cheering for defenses all game, forgetting that I actually had money that could be won. But
what was okay, so what was the pick? What did you pick in the tiebreaker?
Fucked up was Washington. Because I assumed Dallas would rest their starters.
Oh, so you had to pick a score for that one game?
No, the final game where I had to pick the score was Cincy at Pittsburgh. And I went 53. And came in at 43.
Yeah.
So, bet on me on the tiebreaker, but my philosophy on tiebreakers like that is you've got to pick the top or the bottom end.
Yes.
If you pick the over-under number, it turns into a disaster. Now, in this case, the over-under number was 44.5. So they pretty much nailed the number on that one, which doesn't fit my philosophy. But so I missed 2 weeks because I'm a fool. So in 75 games in my pick 5, I went 46, 28, and 1.
That's a pretty good record.
And yeah, I'm standing by the 62% right. And this, I think, might tell us something about our struggles this year. What I usually would select was the side that we liked in games that we chose not to play. Those were my first 3 picks almost every week. Plus, I almost always bet against Tennessee.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that.
Was mostly a solid winner for me all year. But it was almost like because we weren't actually throwing the $10 down on the game, I was much freer just in my little pick 5 pool to take underdogs. Like, I can go back through the records. I took a lot more underdogs in the pick 5 than we ever did. So I'm not saying we're going a whole bunch of underdogs this week, but
no, we have to
how I managed to make
season.
No fucking money, not a penny off 46, 28, and 1. It basically just speaks to my idiocy.
Well, no, but you're basically picking a 5-team parlay.
Yeah. And I went 4-1 6 times.
Which was the reason we got out of the parlay business this year.
Absolutely.
And we were only doing
Picking
2-gamers.
A 3-team parlay or 2-team parlay is hard enough. But I'm thinking next year maybe we'll open up the pick 5 to both of us. We'll figure it out from our Flotsam and Jetsam.
Okay. That sounds like a plan. Now, you were saying we're down a bit for the year?
Yeah.
We're down about $70.
Which still makes this the cheapest hobby on the planet.
Which, when you figure out we bet, 51 games? And we're giving up approximately $1 on the VIG on every bet?
Yeah.
We almost broke even, basically.
Yeah, but the VIG's part of it. You can't just
No. But I'm just saying, like, when you factor in that we're giving away $1 a bet, when we bet 10, they pay us back 19, or on some of them 18.33. Man, you got to factor. It's part of the expense of making the bet, but it's
absolutely. Like, I don't think it's bad, and this is why I enjoy gambling as my hobby. It can be very cheap. We could be building model boats and dropping $600 on kits. So for anyone who has to defend their gambling versus the wife, if you keep it in control, it's the cheapest hobby out there.
And for the $10 we bet a game, I sure got enjoyment out of watching Carolina kick fucking Atlanta's ass. Even though I was upset that New Orleans fucking shit the bed in Tampa.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
For two reasons, yeah. As you said, Breeze fucked you twice.
Yeah, he did.
But we are into the point where the games really matter. We have 4 games to pick this week. We are selecting sides on 3 of them. 3 of them? All right.
3 of those. 3 of dems?
Dems, yeah. Well, our first game is Carolina, Arizona. I think we have to say Dems. Carolina at home are 6.5-point favorites versus Arizona.
Well, I'm no secret here. I like the Panthers, not the Card. Jeez, I almost said Cardinals. I like the Panthers. The way the defense has played the last 3 weeks, they're getting running out of Newton and Stewart. They're a much better team with just Jonathan Stewart running the football and D'Angelo Williams out of the picture. Much better team. The Kelvin Jenkins drops last week concern me. Or Kelvin Jenkins. Fuck me.
Okay, that's supposed to be a joke. It's not supposed to be the first name you pop up with.
Oh, Kelvin Benjamin drops last week are concerning. Arizona still has a good defense. They put up 17 points against the Niners on the road. I still like Carolina in this game. It started out at 4.
And this is where I think we fade the public. I think we take the Cardinals. They're a better coached team. They just proved they could contain a mobile quarterback who was willing to try to run. You've got all they have to do, and here's my one caveat on that, is Arizona traditionally struggles against the tight end, and Greg Olsen is still a damn fine tight end. I am strongly leaning towards Arizona, partially because of the point move. Everyone is piling on Carolina. What have they done? What makes them 6.5-point favorites over anyone? Particularly a team with a solid defense. Carolina's looked great in the last few weeks, but what defense did they face? Atlanta's?
No, granted. But anytime you're getting pressure like that, causing turnovers...
Arizona will get pressure too, which Atlanta can't. Who did Carolina beat before? New Orleans. Who the fuck cares about New Orleans? They're a goddamn terrible football team on every level. Carolina has beat up a bunch of scrubs, and suddenly a resilient 11-5 team who just fought the Niners to the wall. And do you think the Niners are worse or better than Carolina, ultimately?
Well, with Carson Palmer, I think they're better. With Lindley in a playoff game and no proven running back, there might be some issues.
Jonathan Stewart is the running back.
No, I'm talking in Arizona.
Oh, I know. No, I know, but I'm just going Carolina. At least San Francisco had Hyde and Gore. So they had a better running game. That was also on the road. It's very much you're at 11-5 and you're 6.5-point underdogs.
Yeah, they beat the
What's
Saints.
The motivation? They beat the Saints. They beat Atlanta and Tampa. Wasn't that their previous game?
Yeah.
So you beat the NFC South. Bravo.
So did everybody else.
I like Arizona as a dog pick in this.
Oh, they beat the Browns. 17-13.
Ooh. The Browns are probably the best of those three teams.
Yeah.
I like taking the 6 with Arizona in this. Like, we don't have to bet it, but we're definitely split.
Well, it's the Cam Newton factor.
And is that better or worse than the Colin Kaepernick factor?
Better.
Okay.
He's better. He's played better the last month.
Now, is the
Kaepernick.
Niners' defense better or worse than Carolina's defense? I would say the Niners' defense at home is significantly better in the farewell Harbaugh game. And I like the momentum for Arizona. I love the fact, really, that we got 2.5 points here. Carolina's home field advantage is not particularly significant. Do you ever think, oh my God, those rabid Panthers fans?
No, but do you think Lindley could fuck us in this game with a couple of picks? That's what scares me with Arizona. It's not that their offense or their defense is going to suck.
Arizona's O-line is better than probably if you took the best players from Cleveland, Tampa, New Orleans, and Atlanta on the O-line.
No, but you don't, with playing Arizona now with no running game, you don't really have to worry too much about getting beat in the run game. You can game plan for just stopping the pass.
Against San Francisco. And like Carolina, they beat on 3 teams from the South and Cleveland. And everyone's saying, ooh, they're back. Now they're looking like the Carolina we thought they were. Well, Atlanta looked like Atlanta that they thought they were against New Orleans. Like, they just beat a bunch of teams that everyone beats. Arizona lost, and by the way, for 2.5 quarters looked solid against Seattle with Lindley. They're still an 11-win team, and they've done it with a variety of quarterbacks and personnel, and that defense.
Yeah, but how many third-string quarterbacks win in the playoffs? I know we're not asking them to win.
No. But okay,
how many third-string quarterbacks?
Pass rushers you can
do we remember
name?
what happened to Houston when they had to go with their third-string quarterback against fucking Baltimore in the playoffs? And they had a running game.
Okay, this may be the game we don't bet, but I'm strong in Arizona, and I don't think you're going to push me off.
You're swaying me towards Arizona.
I don't think Carolina has beat anyone. Name a significant pass rusher from any of the last 3 teams Carolina has beaten.
No, you can't.
And Arizona has a pass rush. Cam Newton's looking great, and I love Cam, you know. I'm on record as being a huge Cam Newton fan. But every quarterback looks better when there is no pressure.
Oh,
I just think that, like, everyone is all over Carolina. And this, I think, is a perfect fade the public bet.
But Arizona, I know they held Seattle close, but they're almost the same team.
That game,
but they're almost the same team on offense, though. Seattle and
that's why you take the points. If you think it's going to be
Carolina. No, Seattle and Carolina are almost the same team on offense.
Except one has Marshawn Lynch and one has Jonathan Stewart.
Yeah, but
Jonathan Stewart has looked like a marginally competent running back in the last 4 weeks versus Cleveland, who I give some credit to, and then New Orleans, Tampa, and Atlanta. You know, when was the last time he ran for 100 yards against anyone? He's the renaissance of their running game. The only player on Carolina, outside of Cam Newton, that's a given, but who scares me is Greg Olsen. That's the only player who gives me any trepidation. And 6.5 is huge for a 7-8-1 team who has collected, 5 of their wins versus the NFC South.
I just can't get off a third-string quarterback in a big fucking game. I know you can't predict turnovers. Not with Lindley. You can't predict
turnovers. And Carolina's defense, again, they've been feasting on carrion. They haven't had to take down prey in the last 4 weeks.
Well, we'll come back to it.
Okay, well, I'm taking Arizona for sure.
You're swaying me, but we'll go through these other games first.
Yeah, all right. And this isn't a forced underdog pick. I honestly think that I like Carolina. I love Cam Newton. But how do you give up 6.5 to an 11-win team who has collected at least, but they've collected at least 3 or 4. They lost Carson Palmer in week 7. They managed to scrounge up another 4 wins against better opposition than the Panthers. All right, next game up. Pittsburgh at home are 3-point favorites versus Baltimore.
Pittsburgh.
Here's one where I really do like the favorite. With or without Le'Veon Bell, Baltimore can't cover it deep. They will get pressure.
Maybe. We're putting probably a lot on not playing for a fucking month.
Yeah, I don't think he's the big factor. Baltimore just continually gets pressure. And Pittsburgh's O-line is much better than it has been in recent years, but they're still not awesome. So they will get pressure. But Roethlisberger still moves around, and I don't know what sort of weaponry you need to take him down in the pocket.
For a team that just lost a running back, you couldn't ask for a better matchup than the Ravens.
Yes.
I think 3/4 of their starting secondaries are hurt and out for the year. And the Steelers have the best deep game in football right now. And they just beat the Ravens.
Now that Pittsburgh is fast, that field isn't a quagmire anymore.
And the one strength that Baltimore may have had, Pittsburgh did a pretty good job against Cincinnati's run game. And Flacco's going to have to beat him. And Pittsburgh's secondary is not great either.
No.
But
they get turnovers. For as terrible as they are a turnover-based secondary. And Flacco's been that way recently. He's looked brutal in the last 2 games. As soon as I said, so I'm going to say Flacco is amazing. He's having the greatest game of his career. I think we're crazy to bet Pittsburgh, but do you know what? We're gonna. How's that?
Yeah, that's
double
good.
Reverse jinx myself.
Yeah, they don't have a tight end, which you could exploit Pittsburgh secondary with Polamalu out, even though he's not the same guy he was years ago. But they don't have him. You could exploit that. But they just don't have that right now. I don't think Forsette's going to set the world on fire.
No, he had his little burst there to get fantasy players all excited. He hasn't had a good game in something like 5. He's been very, very routine. I still don't trust that receiving core from Baltimore. I mean, it made me respect Flacco a little bit more, Because I'm thinking, who is he throwing to put up these numbers that he's putting up week in, week out? I still don't believe them. Don't talk to me about Ike Taylor, because the Steelers are better when he's not on the field. It's that simple. Gay is a better player. But all of that said, I really like Pittsburgh at home, only getting basically home field advantage.
Yeah.
I really like this game.
Me too.
So that is a likely bet.
Yes.
I wish either of these teams in the next game had faced different opposition, because I would have faded both of them.
Well, we have to fade. Well, we're picking Indy here. I'm not betting on the Ginger Nightmare 2.0.
He wasn't a problem in that game. Okay, I should give the line first, but Indy are 3-point favorites at home over Cincy.
And I know
I don't
Indy's
even like this. Indy's awful. Indy is a terrible football team.
Yeah, but they shut out Cincinnati in Indy earlier in the year. Has Cincinnati really improved since that game? Where?
They finally figured out that they have the best running back tandem in the league. That was the game.
No AJ Green.
Well, that's a huge issue, and that's why you might sway me here. But Indy is a terrible football team.
So is Cincinnati.
Cincinnati is a slightly less terrible football
Not
team.
much. What, if they got Jermaine Gresham, he's scaring you at tight end?
No, and he can barely walk.
Fucking, without AJ Green they got fuck all.
Yeah, they've got Sanu had a brief
and
burst
if you
in the
recall,
middle, kind of like as I was talking about for Set, Sanu suddenly can't catch it even if it hits him in the fucking hands.
But if you recall, the first game they played, Green was out, and since he didn't have a first down in the first half, until they got a penalty in the last minute.
Well, that's because, the only
Green
thing,
was out.
I'm not saying you're wrong, but they gave Jeremy Hill the ball 3 times at that stage. Because Hugh Jackson, I don't know, decided to reinvent himself as a pass-happy coordinator. And since he had that late season resurgence...
That's the game fucking Bernard almost got killed twice.
Yeah, because they weren't even running Hill. You didn't realize that you had this perfect tandem of running backs?
Yeah,
no,
but
you're right. You're right. We're going to take Indy because...
They haven't done fuck all in the last month. Who have they beat?
Who, Cincy or Indy? It applies to both. I'm just wondering which one you're referencing here.
Cincy. Even when they started off the season on that winning streak, when they won 3 in a row.
Oh, yeah.
They beat Tennessee, Atlanta, and they beat Baltimore.
Yeah,
and then got fucking smoked by New England, tied Carolina, lost to Indy, beat Baltimore by a field goal. Jacksonville, game we covered on. Lost to Cleveland. Then they beat New Orleans, Houston, and Tampa for a 3-game win streak. The Denver game shows that they can do something. Dalton threw for 146 yards.
That's because they finally figured out they owned running backs. That was my whole point. In that first Indy game, they decided, let's let the Ginger Nightmare win or lose the game. That running back tandem is good.
No, I'm not.
Does Indy have a defense?
They put up 17 points in Pittsburgh. Hill ran for 100. Dalton threw for 244. They just don't score. And that game against Denver, did their defense not score 2 touchdowns?
Indy was not a romp with Tennessee. Indy got spanked, I don't know,
It was a wrong
34,
to
somewhere
Tennessee.
between 200,000 versus Dallas. Indy is a terrible football team.
Okay,
They
but
have
Cincinnati's
literally
offense
no
isn't anywhere
running
near
game.
Dallas.
Okay, then let's think about it this way. Is Cincy's defense,
Are you going
which
to take?
shut down the Broncos, better
Are you?
than...
Do you really want to take Andy Dalton over Andrew Luck? A quarterback that's 0-3 in the playoffs and has shit the bed in every playoff game he's played in. This isn't like a one-off thing we're looking at. 3 years in a row they've been in the playoffs. 3 years in a row they've lost 2 at home, 1 in Houston. And we have history with this team
But,
playing each other.
okay, Indy's defense...
And Indy's a different team at
Indy's
home.
defense is... No, they're not. Well, let's hear. Maybe they are.
I'm just pulling up their schedule.
Yeah.
Lost to Philly at home. Beat Tennessee 41-17. Beat Baltimore at home 20-13. Beat Cincy 27-0. Lost to New England, which everybody does. Beat Jacksonville 23-3. Put up 49 against Washington. Beat Houston 17-10. And that was their home schedule. Lost to Philly in week 2 and New England.
That didn't sound like 8
6-2
games.
at home.
6-2
at home.
Okay. So they beat Tennessee,
Cincy,
lost to New England. No shame there.
Washington, Houston.
Yeah, I mean, I
Baltimore,
guess. I mean,
Cincy.
if it gets
They
down
beat
to
two
our,
playoff
if
teams
it
at
gets
home.
down to our third bet, I'd rather take Zona in the points. Because I think Indy, they have literally no rushing game. Cincy's defense was capable of shutting down Denver. Are you not going to give any credibility
points.
to that? They shut
28
down CJ to Denver. That's pretty good. They limited CJ Anderson. Okay.
Well, no, but you're saying 28 points is shutting down somebody?
I just
That's
don't
what
think.
I'm laughing at.
Okay. Maybe part of my reasoning here is
And the offense only scored 23 of those.
we talked
37
about
points.
how all these North teams and the one South team got to play each other. They're all terrifically fraudulent.
But Indy beat 2 of the teams from the North. In Indy.
Okay.
20-13 and 27-0.
All right. These are terrible. I would rather avoid this game. I'll take Indy. I think this is going to get to be a debate between Indy and Arizona.
And Dalton stinks. Dalton stinks in big. Everything I said about Cam Newton last week in the pick show, Andy Dalton is the exact opposite.
All right.
I thought the Cincy game would be a no-brainer, just based on Dalton.
No, Indy's defense is atrocious on every level. Cincy's defense is good.
It's not.
It's not terrible. It's a lot better than Indy's. Cincy's running game is astonishing. Indy's run game is Trent Richardson.
But they're going to have...
So you think he's just going to be able to sling the ball with no threat of a running game? He's going to be able to sling
27-0 in the regular season without AJ Green.
And
if AJ Green plays, he's at about 50%.
Without Jeremy Hill.
They lost to Pittsburgh, and he had a 100-yard rushing game.
And Indy lost to Pittsburgh, giving up 6 touchdowns and losing 48 to whatever. Right? Roethlisberger threw for 6 touchdowns versus that Indy defense.
27-0 in the regular season to the same fucking team.
And what did Indy lose to Pittsburgh by?
Oh, Cincinnati lost to Cleveland 23-3.
And Pittsburgh lost to Cleveland.
We have head-to-head actual comparable statistics.
It's
27 points against that defense in Indy. And without A.J. Green, since he's not putting up fucking 17.
Okay, but how many did Pittsburgh put up against Indy's defense?
Well, yeah, they did it against...
You can't compare these apples and
oranges. No, but you can't. That was a 2-week stretch. I'm not comparing... I'm comparing them against each other. You're comparing apples and fucking oranges, not me.
Okay.
They played each other. I'm basing it on that. They have no fucking receiving talent whatsoever, and Andy Dalton at quarterback. What am I missing? Without A.J. Green in the lineup, they got beat 27-0. It's looking like almost the exact same fucking scenario. So Hill's going to rush for 300 yards and score 4 touchdowns.
No, but they have ball possession. And as I said in that game, Giovanni Bernard got killed out there. But they still didn't bring in Hill until the next week because, yeah, I'll admit it, since his coaching staff is a little bit insane. I don't love this game. You know it's going to go 2-2. It always does. Let's move on to the next game. We'll come back. The next game up, Dallas are 7-point favorites at home versus Detroit.
This game has more of a chance of covering than the Indy game, in my opinion.
Okay.
With Detroit's defense.
I think this will be close.
I don't know if we can bet Detroit to cover this one because they don't score.
That's exactly the text conversation I had with a coworker tonight. But
they
7 is too much for Dallas here. They're 8-0 on the road. Home field, let's just face it, is meaningless. Right?
But how's Detroit scoring with them? Green Bay just put up 30.
Dallas'
and I would argue Dallas
is like
offense
28th DVOA. Their defense, well, much better than we anticipated. Though, admittedly, I said in a preseason podcast that they would be the worst defense in history. So, yes, they're better than that. They're not good. They're the 28th ranked defense.
Any defense. Detroit doesn't score points against any defense.
They have done against Chicago.
Not on the road.
All right, let's break this down.
Chicago. They didn't score on the road in Chicago 2 weeks ago.
No, but they scored. But how much have they given up?
Well, 30 in Green Bay, and Dallas's offensive talent is as good as Green Bay's.
No.
What?
Not at all.
Oh, fuck.
They don't have a number 2 wideout, and they don't have... Okay, they don't have a number 2 wideout. That's all I got.
They have the leading rusher in football, the best offensive line in football,
hand.
and the best wide receiver in football.
Okay.
Well, he just ran for 100 yards last week.
You want to lay 7 on Dallas?
Well, how many points do you think Detroit's going to score?
About 17.
They have no running game. They have no running game.
Detroit will score between 17 and 20, like they always do.
No running game, and what have you heard of Golden Tate in the last fucking month?
Actually, Joique Bell has been really solid, and Golden Tate, if you look at his numbers, has been really solid. Coming in at about 90 yards a game, touchdown every second game. What more do you want out of your number 2? Just saying, those are the numbers.
Detroit scores 10 points. They've averaged about 13 points a game in the last fucking 16. 15. Fuck. They scored against Chicago on Thanksgiving Day, and week 1 was, I think, their only time over 20 the rest of the year.
Yeah, so I'm calling them at about 17 points versus a weak defense. And Dallas's defense is weak.
Yes, but they score all the time.
All right. And they scored against Seattle. They scored against Indy.
They scored against Washington. They scored against St. Louis. I'm just pulling up their schedule.
Would they score against the Rams?
34.
Okay, that's impressive.
When
was that?
Week 3.
Come on. Let's talk about the last 6 weeks, man.
30 against Seattle, 31 against the Giants. Let's talk about
the last 6 weeks. What has their defense given up in the last 6 weeks? And what have they scored?
31-28 Giants, lost to Philly on the short week.
Gave up 28, and what's the score of that game?
Beach 31-28, beat Chicago 41-28, beat Philly 38-27.
Gave up 28, gave
but
up 27.
They're scoring for, did they cover?
Yes.
41-28, 38-27.
That defense gives up
42-7.
Don't tell me that Dallas' defense is good. They're not.
I'm not. I'm basing it on their offense, and that Detroit doesn't score against anybody.
But very few people score against Detroit. Let's hear what has Detroit given up in the last 6 weeks, and don't go back to week 3.
Well, their defense has been pretty much the same. 17 against Chicago, 17 against Tampa. Stellar offenses. Which is the only team. They're 14 to Minnesota, 14 to Chicago, and 30 to Green Bay. And they scored 17. Here's their last 7 weeks of scoring. 16-6, 9, 17-17, 14-14, and 20.
Yeah. So they will score 17
That's what they
points
scored
against a terrible defense. They will score 17. I'm not saying they will score 30 points. I am saying they will score 17, which almost every team scores.
They scored 24 against New Orleans. And 22
Dallas's
against
defense
Atlanta.
is terrible. I don't know.
Well, what's Atlanta? They scored 22 in England, and they should have lost that game. They scored 24 against New Orleans at home in the last. Then they won in the last 30 seconds.
They never
won in the last 30
less
seconds.
than 13, and they never scored less than 22. So let's call them a 17-point scoring. Dallas? You think their offense will just overpower Detroit's defense? That's your argument.
Yes.
But with one exception versus Green Bay, much of that coming late and strange, has not given up 20 points in weeks and weeks and weeks. Dallas at home has been I'm not certain why you think Dallas can overscore them.
Because Detroit's not going to... I don't care how bad their defense is. They've played shitty defenses all year and put up 23.
So that's within the
Stafford's
spread.
going to miraculously score 40 on the road?
No, he's going to score 17, and they will
Dallas
give up
puts up
21.
30, and Dallas puts up 30 because their offense... They have the best offensive line in football. We've talked about it all fucking year.
Well,
and now we're going to go against the offense.
No,
but they're not going to put up 30?
I completely disagree. I think this is going to be a tight game. This is a 3-point game. Dallas is somehow getting 3 points for home field, even though they're better on the road. They're getting 7 here, even though against good defenses, or even marginal defenses like Philly, must I remind you of Thanksgiving?
Well, you said you didn't want to go back that far.
That was within 6 weeks, dude. Thanksgiving was the 4th week in November.
Yeah, and when we talked about it in our podcast, they had
6
a
weeks
day
ago.
of work. They had a day to work. They played late Sunday
calendar
night.
Math.
They played late Sunday night and played early Thursday. And then they went to Philly 3 weeks ago and crushed them. I believe. If you want to go into the Philly argument, where Detroit doesn't score against Tampa, New Orleans, fucking Chicago, nobody. And those are 3 of the shittiest teams in football.
Okay, but Detroit will score 17. This is my postulation. Will Dallas score 24 against a defense that has given up more than
30.
20 twice this year?
30. With
Last
the
week.
offensive talent Dallas has. That's what
Against
Dallas
Green
is going to score
Bay at
this
home.
week.
So you gave up
That's what
30.
Dallas is going to score this week is 30.
You really think? Okay, how many times has Dallas scored 30 at home this year?
So wait, I got to go back. I was on Green Bay's. Just wanted to see what Lacey did. $38 against New Orleans, 31 against the Giants, 31 against Jacksonville. What am I missing? 42. Did I miss some games? No. Oh yeah, 38 against New Orleans. 31. 3 times. Almost half their
Against
game.
New Orleans, Jacksonville, and the Giants. But you are predicting against the number 1 defense in football, they will comfortably put up 30 points.
Yep.
All right.
Well, we'll kick that game out. And we'll bet on the other 3.
All right.
You can win the Arizona argument, and I'll take the Indy
Yeah,
argument.
because at least you were swayed. Like, I see what you mean about Dallas, but
They have too much talent.
They're smoke and mirrors. They played the NFC East.
Well, who did Detroit beat?
Green Bay once.
Yeah, at home.
They
They beat up on Chicago, Minnesota, barely. Lost to Carolina on the road. Put up a whopping 7 in Carolina. If it wasn't for Detroit's defense, Detroit's defense had to be number 1 to even stay in games.
17, which equals 24 with the spread. And I do not think Dallas will put up that much.
It's fine. We'll kick it out. And Detroit's going to get destroyed.
Okay. Lovely. All right.
So we're betting Arizona plus 6.5.
Boyd under protest.
Well, yeah. Well, we got to do our picks yet.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I was just kind of thinking with Doug on the San Diego Superchargers, if he beats me in the playoffs, he's free
No,
and
no,
clear.
no. We're not changing the bet. No. It was a regular season bet. We're not changing the rules now.
I was just going to give him a double or nothing up. But
Oh, it's changed to 6. Cardinals.
people are coming in on Zona. Fair enough.
So we got 10 pays 1909.
Oh, I thought we'd get a better price with all that spread. Taking the dog.
No, they're all 110 except Cincinnati and Dallas. Okay, we're taking Pittsburgh -3 at home against the Ravens. $10 pays $19.09. And we are taking Indy -3 at home against taking the worst of the Ginger Nightmares in the playoffs. $10 pays 18.
No, the Ginger Nightmare is in Dallas. So that's the original Ginger Nightmare, is Jason Garrett.
Well, we have a 3-game sample to base on Dalton, and he's stunk in all 3. He had one good game in primetime.
No, you're right. You convinced me legitimately. I'm not ever going to whine about this one. You convinced me. You are right. If Indy wins this, they're still a fraud, and they're a joke.
Well, I'm not saying Indy's a Super Bowl team.
Yeah. I would love for them to win this and us to be right, because then we can bet against them in the second round, because they are doomed. They are not a good football team.
Well, the second round, they'll be double digits against New England.
Oh, they'll be...
Unless Baltimore wins and goes to New England.
They might be past 14 if they have to face New England. Indy is terrible. I think Cincy is a less terrible team, but you're right about the home field, and you're right that Cincy shouldn't even be here either. All right. Let me recap our bets.
All right.
We have taken the dog Cardinals versus Carolina on the road. We have 6.5 points. 10 pays 19.09. Oh yeah,
6
right.
Points. It changed.
All right. We have the home field Pittsburgh Steelers versus Baltimore. They are laying 3. We take 10 versus 19.09 winning. Our third game is Indy -3 versus Cincinnati. 10 pays 18. A lot of money on Indy. But we take it.
Money. Wow, I just can't bet on Andy Dalton.
Fair enough. Don't
All
dispute
right.
you. And the game we declined but differed on is I am taking Detroit +7 versus Dallas. You are taking Dallas -7. I predict the final score of 17-23. Do you care to jump in on that?
31-13.
All right. That'll be fun next week.
So, if you want to listen to our podcast, you can listen to it on iTunes or Stitcher for your Android device. On our website, offensivelines.ca. Follow us on Twitter @offensivelines for any updates to our blog posts or when a new podcast is available. Our personal Twitter accounts @olinesmarlon or @olinesboyd. If you want to send us an email, it's offensivelines@shaw.ca. I'm Boyd.
I'm Marlon. And that was our pick show for the Wildcard Week.
All right. Click, and then I went, okay.
Okay, you're recording. Give me your take.
Fuck, I hope Dallas kills Detroit.
Degenerate fucking gambler.